Things are always happening that are like unexplained. Hearing things, sometimes they'll be like whispers. You get a lot of footsteps, shadows, things breaking. The house was built in 1765 for a man named Roger Morris and his wife, Mary Philipse-Morris. They're here for about 10 years, but the revolution is kicking up and they're loyalists. Not only are they loyalists, Roger is an English official, so they really got to get out of here. They leave the house abandoned except for a skeleton crew. George Washington has just been absolutely destroyed in the Battle of Brooklyn. He knows Roger Morris. They fought together in the French and Indian War. He knows Roger Morris has this very big house on a very tall hill, so he comes and makes it his headquarters for about 5 weeks in the fall of 1776. They win the Battle of Harlem Heights here, but they still have to flee because they're still losing the war. The British take Manhattan, so they come in and make it their headquarters for the remainder of the revolution. Them and the Hessians were here until 1783. Then we win the revolution, yay. They have to leave. The house goes through a couple of different hands. In 1810, a woman named Eliza Jumel and her husband Stephen Jumel move in. Stephen is a wealthy wine merchant from France. Eliza was born into abject poverty in a brothel in Providence, Rhode Island. Maybe Stephen was willing to look over her status, or maybe she tricked him. Eliza thought it was haunted and negotiated $2,000 off the asking price. They go back and forth between here and France. At one point, Stephen sends her back with something incredibly rare, power of attorney, to sell the house. She comes back, immediately abuses the power of attorney, does not sell the house, starts getting involved in real estate. She ends up tripling his wealth. So when Stephen dies in 1832, he leaves everything to her. So now from her beginnings, she is the richest woman in New York, if not the entire country. But she's still not accepted into society because of where she came from, so she needs to marry someone important. So she chooses our most notorious vice president, Aaron Burr. At this point, Aaron Burr has already shot Hamilton, already been tried for treason, and he's broke. She has money but no status. He has status but no money. They get married in the parlor in 1833. They are married for 4 months before she realizes he's spending all of her money, the equivalent of today's $375,000. She doesn't love that, would you believe it? So she files for divorce. She hires Alexander Hamilton Jr. as one of her divorce lawyers and files on the anniversary of the duel to rub salt in the wound. She starts summering in Saratoga Springs, where she meets a woman named Anne Northup. Anne's husband Solomon has gone missing. They are both free black people living in upstate New York. Eliza hears of her and that she's a famously good cook, so hires her and their children to live and work in this house. 12 years later, Anne and her husband Solomon will be reunited. As it turns out, Solomon had been kidnapped and sold into slavery in Louisiana. He will later write 12 Years a Slave. After that, Eliza lives the rest of her life here. She dies upstairs in 1865 at the age of 90. There's a long, protracted legal battle after her death. Eventually, we know Eliza Jumel Carroll wins because her name is scratched into the window, and it becomes a museum in 1904. It's not until relatively recently that we as a museum started accepting and rolling with the haunted thing. Our most famous ghost story, and the one that put us on a map. In the 60s, there was a school trip. They're making a ruckus. They're here a little bit early. A woman comes out on the balcony and she tells them to shut up in so many words. The balcony doesn't support human weight. It hasn't for a long time, but maybe if you were floating. The curator goes out there and says, "Sorry I'm late." The teachers say, "Who was that old lady who just yelled and cussed at all these kids?" And the curator says, "I'm the only person here. The house is padlocked." They're like, "Weird." So they go inside. Eventually the kids all start pointing at one lady and they say, "That's her, that's the woman who yelled at us." And the curator says, "That's impossible. That's Eliza Jumel. She died over 100 years ago." That made the newspapers. Hans Holzer came. He brought a medium. Eliza, we have relative confidence she's here. She was here for 55 years, and things get broken in her room when we start making changes. We feel like there's probably a good amount of servants left over because we have consistent reports of activity in the kitchen. We get consistent reports of bad vibes in the chase room. In the Burr room, we have like our most famous EVP that was captured. Washington War Room has a desk in there that someone's attached to, and it's not Washington Provenance. There's a Hessian on the 3rd floor. We know he's there because of the footsteps. We also have like a picture, he's shown up as a shadow, and that's probably who Eliza was referring to when she was talking about the house being haunted in 1810. He fell down the stairs onto his own bayonet. I would haunt too, if that's how I died. I think the history is my favorite part because there's so much. Every day I'm learning something new. Like if you just pick a year out of a hat, something interesting happened here during that year.